All right, well, we are here at Gen Con 2023. Once again, bringing you guys another designer interview. This time, this is a designer, developer, product manager, everything. Alan Phan here for Weebs of the Shore and the Grand Archive TCG. Alan, thank you so much for joining me today. Do you want to start by just telling everybody who you are and what, I already kind of prefaced it, but what your roles are like with Weebs of the Shore?
Yeah, so it's really kind of changed and evolved a lot ever since like Kickstarter from the last time that we spoke. So I've begun to take more of like a direction towards like R&D and organized play. So when it comes to like testing the cards or like really like making sure like the product's well balanced, I'll be taking care of that. But a lot of my efforts now has just been towards the organized play program and making sure that, you know, people have tournaments to play in. So that's kind of like what I've been doing lately. Yeah.
We got Ascent Houston coming up very, very soon, which is kind of the big major tournament for Grand Archive that everybody's been looking forward to. And you said you've been involved in balancing a little more. We have Fractured Crown Set 2 coming out very soon as well, which we've already talked about this. If you watch all our top 5 videos talking about the set quite a bit, I was gushing about how this very much seems like a sort of a, I don't want to say it's a balance correction set because I think that sounds a little wrong, but it is a set that seems to be very, very focused on bringing up particular styles of play, providing some new tools to some of the more popular styles of play, but not necessarily trying to like crank the power up on those anymore, the ones that have already been performing, right? So would you be interested in talking a little bit about how you approached designing and developing specifically with mind towards like balance Fractured Crown Set 2?
Yeah, I'd love to speak on like a little bit about what went into our minds when we went and, you know, we're exploring what to do with Set 2, with Fractured Crown, and it's more so like we noticed that and realized that the simplest form of like gameplay for Set 1, aggro was going to be like kind of dominant, mid-range was like kind of dominant, and like those types of decks, because those control tools that we wanted to introduce was something that, you know, we wanted to have for like a later set like Fractured Crown, where people are more familiar with the game and are ready to have more interaction. So it's more so like, you know, we are definitely slowing down the game a bit, adding a lot of like control tools in. You're seeing more of like that, like those like Staxy types cards, like Death and Taxes and like stuff like that. I personally played a lot of Death and Taxes like in Modern as sort of my play style. So this set was more a lot of stuff that I wanted like into the game. So that's kind of what I wanted for the game. And Silidar, he also kind of agreed and you know, created all the cards, and then when we added it in, I think I was really happy with how the game is kind of playing. So really happy for players, or really excited for players to see like what Fractured Crown meta is going to be like. Yeah.
Yeah, I know talking to Silidar online too, he said the same thing. He thinks players are going to be very satisfied with this new meta game. It does seem like, I mean, I was really impressed with, from obviously things like bringing up Tamer and shoring up Assassin a little bit, who just felt like they were missing just a couple of tools to kind of bring them home in all 3 different elements. Tamer was missing a number of sort of like early bodies that were able to like really put that kind of heat on the opponent before they just got like dunked on by Rye or something. Big Rye fan, so like, you know, I was doing the dunking and I was fine with that, but I'm excited to explore more playstyles too. But even like one thing I thought was really cool was the Lineage Break champions all seem to get some interesting new sort of play patterns that are going to be, I think, maybe varying levels of like competitive playability. But the point is, if you're like a Mordred fan, I got a sword for you now. that Erendite, I've been playtesting Water Mordred for fun, and it's got some legs now, and I really like that. So I love seeing all of that stuff coming in. The other thing that I think is really cool is you're starting to slip in some more cards of other classes, like multi-class cards, Cleric Mage / Mage spells, Warrior / Guardian, Assassin / Ranger. We're seeing some of those kind of combos coming in as we were prepping for Set 3. Do you want to talk a little bit about, you know, you don't have to spoil anything, but a little bit what the idea is in Set 3 and how it's going to expand the game?
Our design, like intention with all of the cards that we do create is that for one day, like maybe this card is good right now, and but there could be like a class bonus like you can't use yet. In this case, I think you can see that on some of the cards in Set 2 have like, they could have Ranger class bonus. Windcutter has Ranger class bonus, and that's something that could be introduced later. Like a future Ranger champion could use that, and it's just always been sort of like our design philosophy that we don't want to limit what future classes can do with old cards, and then make old cards still relevant, for future play. That's kind of like always been on our mind and like at the forefront of our design.
Awesome. So set 3 may have some interesting new classes to play with, or is that something we can talk about yet?
I think we are exploring, and like I think we did mention it before, but yeah, we're definitely trying to explore and add new classes, and I can't really speak much other than that. Just kind of keep the anticipation up. But set 3 is honestly, I love set 1. Set 1 is like our baby, what started everything. But I really do love set 3 and how it's playing. Yeah.
I just wanted something exciting like that. Like, yeah, I'm very pumped to see the future of the game. So you mentioned, I think this is a great segue. You mentioned that set 1 was your baby, and set 1 obviously is what went up on Kickstarter and launched almost $1 million in funding to get the game published. And now you've transitioned out of that sort of like you got that initial funding burst, and we're transitioning to this retail model with your distribution chain system. So what I think is going to be really interesting to hear about is just what was it like transitioning from getting that crowdfunding and then kind of financing all that stuff to sort of a retail-oriented business model? And were there any challenges maybe that you expected but you found a way to overcome, or that you didn't expect and had to deal with in that whole process? Feel free to talk as much as you'd like about that.
Basically, that question is asking, what did we learn from Kickstarter? Where did we come from? And basically, there was honestly a lot. And personally speaking, like just on Kickstarter, distribution itself and just getting things shipped around the world is like a whole nother beast. From like me to Silidar, it's more of like us creating the cards. That was the easy part. That was the fun part, and then doing all the business stuff on the rest of it was just like a lot of stuff we had to pick up quick, which is, luckily we have teammates like Roger, like Jimmy, who are, well-versed in shipping, and Roger really picked up a lot of that logistical manufacturing and like all that business ops like stuff that me and Silidar don't typically deal with on the day-to-day was really, really helpful. So I think part of what we're struggling with right now is just figuring out how to scale and grow, and I think it's more so of a good problem to have than a really bad one. So I think we're doing a really solid job. We're just trying to do our best. Silidar puts it in a good way. We had a conversation of like the other day. It was more so like we want to get upgrades for our car, the car being the company, but we still need to drive the car around, and we don't really have time to stop. So that's kind of where we are, and we definitely we've learned a lot from just like from those like Kickstarter days, and also like what was most important for us in the beginning was like working with the local game stores. That's why we kind of transitioned to that, like us to distributors, then the distributors go to the store. That's just the model that like a lot of local game stores already follow, and they already have all those networks in place, and our partners at our distributors have been really, really great. So it's been a really great experience. There's definitely been some hard stuff, but we've come a long way, and I'm pretty proud where we are now.
Yeah, and I certainly think you have come a long way. We've got, I've always considered Grand Archive to sort of be punching above its weight class. It's as far as like this sort of come out of nowhere Kickstarter game that really feels like a bigger operation than I think the small group of you like truly are, which is a great thing to have. As far as like when we're talking about like scalability, it means that you're already feeling like that larger size company, so it's going to be easier for people to start to put, I think, a little bit of confidence in that. And then when you need to scale up a little bit, it's not gonna rock the boat, right? Players it's gonna feel like the same thing without feeling like things are changing too much or something, So I think that's awesome. You said you've been working a lot with organized play. We already mentioned that Ascent Houston is coming in oh man, what is it? 2 months now? Just under 2 months, I think. Yeah. Yeah. We of course will be there. Main Deck will be doing something, probably playing and things and recording a lot of content and just having a lot of fun. I personally can't wait for that. And we also we're right in the middle of store champs and regionals for Set 1's metagame, which has been very exciting too. Had some very crazy, like top cut results, things like that Water Lorraine deck in I think that was the Oceanic Regional or something. I think that's right. So I love seeing stuff like that. People kind of getting some rogue decks breaking the meta. What else do we have to look forward to in organized play? I mean, Ascent Houston is called Houston for a reason, right? You don't have to give me details, but we have more Ascent events coming, or are you working on some interesting new in-between or higher level events, or what can you talk about here?
Yeah, so actually our Ascent New Zealand was announced at the New Zealand Regional, and that's our next big thing. We're also showing that we want to reach just also outside of the US and really explore our global community more. In terms of what people can expect for future organized play events, I think what we really want to dial in is just the format and structure itself. I think a lot of and our regional organizers are really great. I think all of them worked really, really hard to especially do things in such a short span of time, from official release into getting the event planned. I think what we're trying to provide now is just a more solid structure, so players can be familiar to they can be familiar with what to expect, and our organizers will also know what to expect whenever they sign on to do an event with us. So that's part of what our efforts are moving forward for organized play. But yeah, check out the Ascent New Zealand. We're going to have more information on that, I think, probably after we get back from Gen Con. We're working on that with our friends over there. And we're definitely looking at planning out more events, such as other Ascents and stuff like that. And there's a couple cooler things that I can't really talk about right now. Some things that are, honestly, once we have more details fleshed out, we'll definitely get those revealed to the public right away. But we do have things outside of just playing in a store in mind too.
It's always just nice to hear when there's something in the oven at the very least. So thank you. It's good to hear that. As far as the design itself, you have an element system in the game, and I think that's one of the more fascinating components of the game. 3 basic elements, but then some arbitrary number of advanced elements they get to choose from, mix and match. And you have this. I think one thing that we've heard from the very beginning is people were wondering about: are there more basic elements to come? What are all the advanced elements? And I don't want you to spoil anything or talk about anything in particular here, which you certainly don't have to, or what you guys are cooking up. But I guess I would just love to hear, for the people who are just kind of learning about Grand Archive and are starting to ask those questions again. They missed the Kickstarter question period. Now they're in the post-Kickstarter. I just found out about the game, what's going on. Can you tell people a little bit about what the design philosophy is behind behind the basic elements, and how you're doing advanced elements, and where you kind of expect the game to go as far as what options become available for deck building in the future? Can you talk about that?
We've already mentioned that in the past that there's going to be future advanced elements that we could explore. At its core right now, we want the triangle of fire, water, and wind elements to interact with each other. In the future, we've already kind of had these talks before. We're not so much opposed to introducing maybe a future primary element. It's more so how can we do it in a way that we like it? So it's a give and a take, and I think there's a lot of benefits to do it, and a lot of benefits or a lot of downsides to it as well. I can say at the very least for the forefront of our design is just keeping the 3 basic elements, and then hopefully in the future you'll definitely see in the future the other advanced elements to really change how your deck building is. But you can see with things like our sealed kit, for example, the prismatic spirit that lets you choose 2 elements. What happens when you combine more than one basic element, right? What happens when you have a fire and water deck? What happens when you have a wind and fire deck? What elements work best together? Even though they're basically separate identities, it's I personally have had a lot of fun testing that product and playing, sealed with Silidar. It's just we're finding what combinations that we enjoy the most, and I think that's kind of what we'll probably move to like in the near future instead of exploring like, a fourth primary element or something. I guess we already technically have a fourth. We have the Norm Spirit.
Yes. Lost Spirit.
So, I mean, if there are any of our Lost Spirit fans, I want to see what you guys can cook with that. But yeah, that's kind of like what my personal thoughts are. Sildar also has his thoughts in his mind, but that's kind of how I've always viewed the spirits themselves, like the three basic elements.
Cool, and I think that's really interesting, and I really appreciate too just the sort of the straightforward answer. I think a lot of times we get very coy answers from companies about like, I can't say it either way. So I like this, like, it's something that we've thought about. It's something we've looked at and talked about. It's so for all the people out there begging for an earth element, it's not off the table, but it's not on the table right now either, right? More or less.
No, and so like, for one thing is let's say like for example like an earth element. It's how can we explore that, like, because we do have like Terra, for example, right? And Terra is like meant to be like that nature-y sort of like vibe, and how much of what sort of primary element, and like how can we like not encroach like on the advanced elements like identity, how like, and because you don't want like like a lightning element, basic element, but you have arcane, which is sort of like that sort of like lightning-esque, like arcane magic like type deal. We want to make sure that those advanced elements really shine and like keep their identity.
So are you fairly happy with how players are playing the game as far as how they're using advanced elements? We have mix of decks. We have decks that don't use advanced elements at all. We have decks that do some insane stuff when they get to. I was actually in our play testing yesterday. I had a friend doing a Water Lorraine test, and they were just recollection step, bouncing in and out the draw two sword and like drawing infinite cards and everything. I couldn't win that game, by the way. I was out. But are you pretty happy with how people are using like advanced elements in their deck building and then sometimes choosing not to? Is that kind of what you were aiming for when you were developing the game?
Yeah, and in the beginning, I think I've also said that we didn't really always want people to just expect that when they get to level 3 that they'd be winning, by huge margin. Like a lot of people have explored just what happens if I just stay at level 1, and there's a lot of things that I can do. I think from the Canadian regional, we were able to see like I believe the winning list was a Fire Xander list, and it was a pretty aggro like oriented list, and we're seeing other decks like pop up like that. In the beginning, a lot of people weren't even playing level 3 Lorraine, but they were just playing like level 2 Lorraine, and doing a lot of just aggro, summon a lot of humans, summon a lot of dudes, go wide like type strategies. I think honestly, it's everything that I've been kind of wanting to see. Sure, there are some cards that I think were a bit overtuned, to say but we put those on the watch list, so it's they're there. But it was good to have cards that are powerful, and I think it's important for people to have like clear win conditions and things that make you feel great when you play it, like especially like that if it feels strong in that identity like that we want. So overall, like just pretty happy in general. I think for set 1, a lot of people are still finding out what's the best strategy. So we're really interested to see how set 2 is going to shake that up.
And I know I said that was the last question, but I actually do have one more. I'm going to spring this, and this is me being a serious journalist now and pushing you with the hard questions. Okay, so this is certainly I think the biggest hurdle Grand Archive has faced so far has been product availability. So first edition still goes for high price tags. It's hard to find. Lots being cracked to go for this collector ultra rares, which I took one for the team and didn't get one so that everybody else in our local area could pull one. Thank you, and you're welcome. So, and then Ultra Edition released and flew off the shelves and is gone. And we do have a reprint coming August 25th alongside Fractured Crown. We're getting some more, last I heard. So how is the team working on addressing this product availability issue? And are you looking at ways to sort of try to onboard players who couldn't get into the game because they missed out? Now that there will hopefully be some product available, are you looking for ways to try and and find those players again and get them to try it out now that they can purchase product.
Yeah, of course. And like we do recognize that Ultra Edition ended up just being a lot more popular than we expected. We knew like a lot of people needed product, and especially since set 2 is meant to be sort of like a supplementary set, we understand like 100% that people need Ultra Edition, like just Dawn of Ashes, to play set 2. And we're looking at like, you know, say for example, like our organized play program, we're trying to find the best way to distribute those event kits, those that have, you know, cards inside, like your uncommons, rares, and stuff like that, things that you'll need for like deck building that people have been struggling to find. We're looking at, you know, always looking at demo events. Like this year, like recently, we just improved the demo decks overall. It includes like both the fire and wind version of Lorraine, and it has some cards in there that you should be able to get for free to like learn how to play the game. We're trying to increase the availability of starter decks. We're trying to get that reprint of set 2 out there. So we're doing what we can, and as much as our production can really handle. I think like Roger is working basically however many hours a week that he's just working full time on production, and we're definitely always looking to like find cool and interesting ways to just onboard new players and introduce like, you know, interesting things for people to try and explore for the game. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, very excited for the future of Grand Archive. I mean, it's not the worst problem in the world to have when your set completely sells out beyond your expectations. I think you guys have been making the right steps trying to get this product back out in people's hands. If you haven't given Grand Archive a shot, of course, recommend that you do. Fantastic game. We can't get enough of it. It's the first time in years I've been doing weekly locals instead of just like every other week, or I can't make it sometimes. I make sure I'm there every Tuesday at our locals at one of our sponsors, J-Dubs Sports Cards and Gaming. So been having a blast even with that set 1 metagame, just like you said, exploring. There's people are still finding like, oh, you know what, actually this deck is better than we thought it was, which is really fun. And set 2 right around the corner. I'm about to start frost binding all of your cards, so you better get ready. I cannot wait for that. So I hope you guys enjoyed this little chat. Alan, thank you so much for chatting with me today. Appreciate it. That's I think it was quite a bit of useful and interesting information for people to get them excited for the future of the game, and I'm sure we will be in touch again in the future. So thank you so much. You guys have a great one. We'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching another Main Deck video. You can support Main Deck by shopping at tcgplayer.com using our affiliate link. Check the description of the video for details. Main Deck is sponsored by J-Dubs Sports Cards and Gaming. Visit jwwcards.com and by our amazing patrons. Get exclusive content and other cool perks on the Main Deck Patreon. And hey, while you're here, I bet you'd like one of these videos. Go ahead, click one. I know you're gonna love it.